Hello, welcome to the Sovereign Magazine Show, a transformational experience for conscious conversations, meet embodied wisdom. Each episode invites visionary healers, thought leaders, and change makers to share their journeys of awakening, offering listeners practical tools and soul-stirring insights to reclaim their inner authority. We have the beautiful Cassandra Eris back today. She is a dynamic blend of corporate leader and intuitive guide. She seamlessly balances boardroom strategy with spiritual insight. As a numerologist and intuitive channel, she integrates her gifts into all aspects of her life, from business to psychic circles. She values faith and humor, lots of humor, empowering others to face their fears and embrace authenticity. Her mission is to guide people towards self-liberation through awareness and self-forgiveness, helping them find true freedom through her internal leadership approach that reveals the energetic blueprints beneath the behavior. And if you haven't watched the first three episodes of this series, which is Internal, the Energetic Leadership Blueprint, definitely go back and listen to episodes 1 through 3. Today, we are talking about the stress response pattern. All
Yes,
right.
we
Welcome,
will.
Cass.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is actually one of my favorites because it has the tendency to potentially run rampant, and it's almost like it's the best data point, and sometimes can almost feel like a blind spot depending on what we're doing here. So again, Nicole, I would love to sort of involve you as we go, maybe as we dive in more to the definition and sort of where you see the out of alignment type of stress patterns show up. I would love to hear how you see it, how you've become aware of it. And then I've got the sneaky background energetic sort of listed out so we can dive into more of that. So looking forward to your zest of
As
genius.
always, I'm an open book.
Amazing. So let's start off sort of with this stress response pattern. We all have stress in our lives. It's a constant, right? An ebb and a flow and a contrast. Um, but what I do want to state is that when we are stressed, oftentimes we bring up this narrative like, oh, this isn't me, this isn't me. Pressure doesn't create a new version of you, it just reveals this version of you that's running underneath everything. You are not two separate people. It's not like a personality disorder just because you're stressed. It's just where you default, and you default when the stakes are high or timelines are crunched or emotions are high at home because of a certain family dynamic. I mean, it could be any of those things. And what happens is our leadership in any of those moments then either sharpens or it collapses. And so that's just something to be aware of, that it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you wrong. Oftentimes it's the way that you think it's best to protect yourself or your family unit or your team. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we're not getting super critical of how we act in these moments. We're using it as a data point, and that is the key throughout all of this. So with that, sort of let's dive in a little bit more, right? When we have these stressors that come into us, again, we listed some examples, we can go into more, right? You don't you don't necessarily rise to the occasion, but you fall into your pattern. And oftentimes, until you become aware of what that pattern is, as I'm sure, Nicole, you've already sort of navigated many pieces of this, right? But that's just something to be aware of. You kind of fall into this pattern because it feels safe, because you feel protected. And so we'll go into more examples of that. If you don't know your pattern, you can't lead under pressure in the best, most efficient, and safe way possible. You only react. So as we dive into this, keep that in mind. Again, we're not wrong. It's just a narrative. It is a pattern that we use and we hold on to for dear life because we think it's going to protect us. Fair? Cool.
Super fair. Super fair.
um, just right, making sure I captured all my notes here. Um, to your stress response pattern, is who you become when when you're no longer leading intentionally. And so that is just super important as we sort of get into these high stress situations, high stakes situations, family dynamics that create a lot of emotional tension. We forget about intentionality because emotions run over, or time seems to be like making you make decisions without being aware of all the different aspects that come into play, right? Again, this is not a bad habit. This is your sort of like shadow pattern that's activating under pressure. It can be fast, again, and protective, and oftentimes it's rooted in control or fear or disconnection. So those are the main things to think about. And Nicole, I would love to hear um, about a time maybe where control, fear, disconnection led you into sort of what you felt was misaligned or maybe withdrawn.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll speak about one time when let's just say a team member wasn't showing up as her authentic self and more from her fear-based self. And we'll say maybe even had a crisis moment. Um, and of course, I mean, in the moment, my jaw was just like, wow. And that's all I could say was just wow. And then she ended the Zoom call on me. She said she wasn't going to hear one more wow. And so I sat with it. I called Chris, our coach, and Chris has been with us for 7 years. She knows the ins and outs of the business, but I just needed to process that moment because I didn't want to react and I wanted to respond. And ultimately, the goal, right, is making that decision from alignment. And I could not do it from that moment because I was so triggered on so many levels of, I mean, everything you could imagine from being pissed off and feeling betrayed. I mean, just everything you could imagine, right?
Mhm.
And so, I waited. That is one of my techniques is to wait because I have two emotional waves in my human design. You'll have to tell me what my numerology says. But I needed to wait because otherwise it was going to come out and it was going to come out nasty and it wasn't going to have the result that I
Mhm.
ultimately wanted. Like my divine self wanted a clean break because the behaviors that happened were not tolerable. Just it needed to the a relationship needed to end based on what had happened. And so I knew I needed to terminate the contract. Um, and it didn't fit my values, it didn't fit
Yeah.
Sovereign's values. And so anyway, my natural tendency is to avoid, but but I also have a fighter in me because as a good girl people pleaser, I also have a tendency to try to explain my side of the situation from my
Mhm.
lens to prove that what I'm about to do is the right thing and that I'm right. So I have to step away from that part, really get clarity and like, nobody really cares what you have to say, Nicole. You can put it all out on a paper, but in the end, like just get to the end of it. Like they don't care about all the bullet points. You can tell yourself you're the bullet points. So those are kind of some of the things that I have noticed within myself is really needing to take that time to pause because if I don't, I'm going to avoid the situation, which is what happened here. I avoided it for probably 6 months and then it finally came to a head and the universe was like, hello.
You
And
need
there
to
were
deal with this
the
now.
red flags were there for a while.
Yep. Yeah, and what's interesting about your energetics actually is that your leadership trajectory. So if you haven't watched that episode, super important. That's your sort of like you're destined to master, right? Your energetics are actually in the same sort of placement as your shadow. So I think I mentioned this on the last call, but it was kind of genius because you have the ability to master and be really aware of those stress response patterns and then act accordingly because you have also mastered that part of your energetics as well. So it energetic overload and or withdrawal, that's ding, 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 number one, right? So that's shutting down. I think we talked about this, isolating from the team, avoiding communication,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
have this ability to see your stress response pattern. And of course, the experience of how many years of being able to sort of be in these tough situations where you have to sort of acclimate and respond, but in a way that feels aligned to you. So thank you for calling yourself up and for sharing that because I think that's really, really vulnerable, but also can give folks a really clear understanding of what that might look like as well. Um, there's also it's nuanced, right? Because this energy holds the collective we and why that's so important. And so you can, yes, be overdrawn, but your energetics actually um, when you have the potential of dropping out of alignment into that stress response pattern, there's this quiet superiority that can turn into judgment as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're withdrawn, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not why don't they get why I would do it? Like, don't they
Mm-hmm.
see this is better for everybody? And so then
Mm-hmm.
it becomes this sort of like judgment, even though I would say you're the least judgmental person I've ever met in my entire life. It's
Mm-hmm.
just in these moments of stress. Again, we are creatures of contrast. We hold it all, right? So thank you for being so honest. And they're back to back, like in my notes. And I was like, that's cute, Nicole. Perfect. Perfect. We did not talk about this
We
before.
didn't. We didn't. We didn't. And I want to go back to that point of when I am in stress, because you said the collective we, and if anybody missed the trajectory one, we talked about that, how I'm always about the we and not about the me. Like that's just who I am as a person. But when I do get fired up, then it does become about me. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I've been given so much here. How dare you? Like, how dare you? And I do that with my family as well. Like one of my most needed things in life, and I don't need it verbally, I just need to feel it, is
Hmm.
to feel that you appreciate the level of love and dedication that I give.
Yeah.
And so when you call me a hypocrite, yeah, that's not going to go down very well. Or you call me some other things that are just like I know in my bones are not true when I've bent over
Mhm.
backwards to help you with things.
Right.
So yeah, it's that when it becomes the stress response, it becomes me for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. 100%. And again, it's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just a data point. Okay. So then that's what it looks like. What's changed in us? What distortion has this stress response created? And that's really what we're talking about here. Um, some other examples of this might look like getting more rigid and controlling. I can share a little bit about myself in a little bit, but go quiet or withdraw, which we talked about, over explain or compensate. Those are also areas where I mean, I think we've all done it as women, where we feel that as though we need to
Explain.
overcompensate for things because we have to prove our worth. And so that's just a narrative we all sort of carry, and a mother wound we may carry, but it's something to be aware of. Whether that is your polarity and that's within your leadership blueprint and your energetics, perhaps not, but it still persists in all of us. Um, and then second guessing decisions, is an obvious one, but definitely a part potentially of your specific stress response pattern. Um, the problem that I see most often is when this occurs, it's like the trust that you have in yourself when you're aligned now shifts to trusting the version of yourself that's within that stressor. response pattern. So I'll go into more detail about mine, but mine, which I kind of hinted towards in the last episode, is all about control. And so structure is sort of the thing that I really do very, very well. I have structure energetics and creating structure and making decisions from a non-emotional state throughout my chart. But I also have it in this stress response sort of space, right? And so then I push everybody away just to control. And I forget that everyone needs to be a part of the decision making versus me just controlling, structuring it how I think it should be, and then moving forward. So it cuts off all of this collaborative energy, all of this, like, we do this as a collective, we do this as a team, we do this as a family unit. Nope, I just act because I am in that stressful space.
Mhm.
Cool. Um, and then I trust that that's the right thing to do, which is even cuter, right? Just sort of circle.
Right. Oh,
Um,
I can do it way better.
well, that's the thing, right? And then there's sort of like a judgment. So now I'm not just making a non-emotional sort of level decision. Now I'm being judgmental and critical about it too. So this criticality can come into it. Um, and it's really efficient. You know, our stress response pattern is very efficient, whatever it looks like. So you're withdrawing, very efficient. You don't have to deal with that for 6 months. You can focus on other things because you are I'm over this. I'm not spending any energy on that. I totally trust in the decision to not have to communicate with that individual and it'll just go away or whatever it is, right? Um, the thing that I want to share though is that that very thing that you use to stay in control or I use to stay in control is what is costing us our leadership in those moments. And so, like I said, when I'm reading the notes of sort of my example, when I'm under pressure, tight timelines, I'm actually under one right now. So this is like very, very, it's living within me to be very aware of what's going on. But high stakes, a lot moving around at once. My default isn't chaos, it's actually control. And so I get very structured and very focused on making things work in the way that I think they should work. But if I'm not aware of it, that structure turns into a rigidity that doesn't flex and mold in the way that it needs to within any given moment.
So how do you
Um,
combat that? What do you do?
you're getting there. Why do you segue?
Oh,
Perfect.
I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry.
it's perfect. It's perfect. So, like I talked about, I stopped trusting other people's input. I get quieter potentially because I'm working on what I think I should be working on and solving for this problem, right? But from the outside, it looks like I'm leading well, but from the inside, the collapse is imminent. It's happening. It's going to affect others as well. And so, um, the way that I do this is I have people in my life that I can trust. So, like, my husband knows if I'm trying to control something, I immediately go into fix it mode. And so he knows to tell me this is not something you need to fix right now. We need to just talk about it initially, set a foundation. We will figure it out together. Those are his words to show me red flag. Stress response pattern is happening, right? I also have people at work who can share with me like, you just took on this level of responsibility and you're doing it in a vacuum.
Mhm.
So that is a trigger. For me, it's very helpful to have sort of a responder as a manifesting generator. That's a very important for me to be able to respond to something too. And so that's kind of the structure that I have built within my structure. Isn't that cute? But that way I'm in alignment. It's a structure that works and it involves other people
It's a tool.
and it helps me call out.
Mhm.
Um, so it's honestly, it's really about being aware. Like you are good at doing what you do when you're responding to stress. Really, really good at it.
Mhm.
It's just that once you know your pattern and what your specific default is too, then you can say, oop, now we need to figure out a plan for me to make, like, I look at my Asana board at work and I'm like, Nope, I'm doing that thing again. Like I'm starting to feel burnt out too. Oh, it's because I'm stressed and I'm just taking everything else on because I think I need to. I need
Mhm.
to have control over that. No, what I need to do is delegate things that aren't mine or let other people figure it out and come to me with a proposal, right? That is part of my leadership and what I do best. But when I'm stressed and I'm not aware and I'm in it, the control is there. And that's the structure and the house I build.
Mhm.
Helpful?
Super helpful. Super helpful.
I think you talked also, oh, like, Chris can coach you through it. You recognize like this isn't working. Now, did you maybe persist a little longer and the like, oh, I'm just not going to do anything with that, right? That doesn't deserve my time. But then you recognized, oh, wait, this is actually part of that, and I need to get another perspective to keep me honest here. So that's a way that you can handle those two. If you have the ability to have that coaching person, someone you trust, I always suggest like, hey, here's your tendencies. Let's work together to figure out what are those indicators and do you have someone who can reflect that back to you that you trust?
Well, and I think for me too, there's this massive energetic component. Whenever I'm in fight, flight, freeze, whatever state that I'm in, there's this massive energetic component for me that I need to release
Mm,
everything that I need to say, right? So I'm going
yeah.
to share the story with Chris, and I'm going to share the story with my husband. I'm going to share the story with whoever will listen so I can repeat that same energetic thing over and over and over and over again to solidify the details that are actually important, right? Because about 99% of them aren't important. There's a
Mhm.
few percentages of them that are,
Yeah.
and that's what needs to be communicated. And I need to focus on the actual goal. But
Yeah.
that energetic movement needs to happen for me in order for me to get to that state of stillness, if you will, right? I need to
Mhm.
move that energy out of my body. Otherwise, I cannot think clearly. And I don't get triggered very often, but when I do, it's so massive. And I'm just like, wow. So I
Mhm.
have to do something to make sure that I can. I mean, I was
Of course.
walking up and down the street, cursing as loud as I possibly could, screaming into the phone at Chris. So, I mean, it just was like I had to move. I had
Yeah.
to. And
Well,
so,
here's the other thing too about your energetics, Nicole. It's so beautiful is this, if we were to distill it down into the numerology of things, right? It's the energy of nine, which is this completion energy. And so of course you need to move through things because you physically feel like you can't complete this until you move it through.
mhm, mhm.
So the opposite of this nine sort of energetics is one, which is initiation. Kind of like with my final frequency column, right? Like it's the one and the nine, and they pair beautifully because you've got this initiation, but then you have this clear call to completion. So what next? Proceed accordingly because you have what you need to complete this. So of course you need to move it through. Whether you
Mhm.
journal or whether you walk or whether you talk it out, right? Communication is really important to you because of that collective we. I need everyone on board. It's
Mhm.
kind of beautiful if you think about it. And again, the genius with the leadership trajectory and then using that to help with your stress response pattern is just key. It's
Yeah.
so essential. And everyone, next lifetime, do what Nicole did.
I'm glad.
Choose to pick these energetics that balance themselves out because it helps. It helps to get to a more aligned place.
Yes. Okay.
My podium now. I'm just checking my notes to see really quickly. We talked sort of about how do we do this. So really, it's step one is awareness in real time. However you do that, you recognize the pieces once you know the pattern, right? And without having a leadership blueprint, I am sure that our audience has some indicator of what they do when they feel extreme stress. And so recognizing those patterns is key. Then you name it, right? Without drama, you just say, okay, this is it. Look at it, observe it as if it's a piece of data. And then you figure out, how do I shift the behavior? Because that is gold. That's where it matters. Um, I think my invitation to everyone who's watching this is maybe to ask yourself a couple things. And so those three steps are really important, but how do you get there, right? And so whether you journal or you voice note and then you listen to it afterward, I would invite you to think about the past few months, maybe. And when you know there have been situations in where it's been high stakes, high pressure, high stress, and you didn't feel great about maybe the following days or the following outcome or how you reacted in the moment. Maybe you energetically shut down or you snapped at someone, right? What consistencies do each of these situations have? That's going to help you sort of define the actions that you take or the withdrawal that happens or whatever it may be energetically for you, right? Where are those consistencies that you see? We're complex creatures, so there may be some that happen in some instances and none in others, right? If you responded a certain way and then you felt drained or terrible or whatever it may be, then ask yourself, because why? And that is so key because, why did I respond that way? Okay, because of this. Okay, but why? Because of this. Okay, but why? And eventually we distill it to what's truly the pattern. And so that would be my invitation to the audience to get a little bit more well acquainted with this powerhouse of a pattern that is just trying to desperately protect you, but gets you so distorted and out of your own element and away from your true leadership.
Yeah, that is so true. It's just our little selves who are trying to protect themselves coming out in a new way. And I know that on our next show, we're going to be talking about innate leadership strength,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the beauty, right? Maybe you even have it like the trifecta of nines in your chart. I don't
Oh,
know, but
goodness, we're going to have to see.
we'll see. But it's the way that they all play together is beautiful, right? The shadow is this sort of protector, and then this innate strength. Sometimes people don't even know it's their strength, which is actually totally beautiful when people become aware that, like, oh, I am really good at that. It's so natural to me that I didn't even realize I was good at that. Or that
Hmm.
I'm not good at that. And then a week later, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I know I really am. That's
Oh,
really like my leadership prowess. And I just do it in the blink of an eye, right? So
yeah.
excited to
Yeah.
get into that next time.
Yay, yay. Okay, well, if you are enjoying these episodes, definitely like, share, subscribe below, comment. It helps us in the algorithm reach more people. And if you want to talk with Cass, she's in our community, community.sovereign-magazine.com. All her details will be in the show notes. And she does our final frequencies. You definitely can read her very poetic columns, if you will. She goes there, and I love it. I love it. She's stretching us. She's stretching us. All right. Sending love, and we will see you on the next one.